These days, it's all about efficiency. Why spend more money when the basic option does the trick? Can you say the same thing about gaming monitors too? Hey, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com. Today we're going to review the Dell G2524H. It's an entry-level monitor from 2023, and it sits below the popular G2724D in the Dell gaming lineup. It's a 25-inch monitor with a 1080p resolution and a 280Hz max refresh rate, so it's meant for PC gamers who crave those high refresh rates. It's a pretty simple monitor. There isn't much to it. No HDR or high bandwidth ports. But hey, at least it has your typical gaming perks. But performance is more important than features, so how does it perform? And considering how cheap it is it worth getting? Let's first take a look at it. It looks pretty good for a budget monitor. It's well built and comes with a very ergonomic stand that's easy to adjust. It has a cutout for cable management and it holds the screen well, but it still wobbles if you have it on an unstable desk. Besides that, it has your pretty standard range of inputs with DisplayPort 1.4 and HDMI 2.0, but the video ports can be hard to reach. It does have two USB ports beneath the bottom bezel that are easier to access, and these are useful if you want to connect your devices and your computer doesn't have any ports left. But one downside is that it doesn't have an audio jack at all, which is disappointing if your computer or console doesn't have this either, so you might have to think of other ways to get sound if that's the case. There isn't much else. It doesn't have speakers or RGB lighting. There are some handy gaming features though, like dark stabilizer to make it easier to see opponents in dark scenes, and different vision and crosshair modes. Before we talk about the gaming performance, let's quickly look at the picture quality. Just don't expect anything special here. It's a cheap monitor that doesn't support HDR, so you're not getting it for the picture quality. For starters, it has a low contrast ratio and blacks look gray in dark scenes. It can't maintain uniform black levels throughout because of the distracting backlight bleed. Plus, it doesn't have a local dimming feature to improve this. Also, it doesn't have a dedicated sRGB mode like some higher end monitors either. Colors are accurate enough before calibration and they look pretty decent, but they're not perfect. They're oversaturated and the monitor has some issues with the white balance, gamma, and color temperature. Of course, you need to calibrate it for an accurate image. And because this monitor is limited to a 1080p resolution, content lacks some detail. But text still looks decent enough that it isn't too blurry. It just isn't the sharpest either. It's not all bad when it comes to picture quality though. It gets bright enough to fight glare in most bright rooms and handles reflections well. Just don't place it opposite a sunny window. Alright, you probably didn't come here to know about the picture quality. You really want to find out about the gaming, and that's where we'll jump to. First off, it has a native 240Hz refresh rate, which is the max you can get over HDMI. But over DisplayPort, you could use the overclock setting to boost it up to 250, 260, 270, or 280Hz. Plus, it supports all common VRR formats to reduce screen tearing with any source, including consoles. But that's pretty much the only feature it can use with a PS5 or Xbox. It's limited to 1080p up to 120Hz, but that's the only resolution you can get. Anyways, this monitor is much better for PC gaming, especially if you're going to take advantage of its high refresh rate. Motion looks sharp, and even though there's a bit of blur, it isn't too distracting. And even if the refresh rate changes a lot, it doesn't have any noticeable VRR flicker like we see on some other monitors. Of course, there's more blur at lower refresh rates, but that's normal. It just doesn't have a backlight strobing feature to reduce this blur. At least it has low input lag at any refresh rate, so the monitor responds quickly to your inputs. So now that we know how it performs, is it worth getting? If you're on a tight budget and need a simple and cheap gaming monitor, then yeah, it's definitely worth getting. Sure, there isn't much to it, but it's good for what you need it for. PC gaming. How much can you really complain about a high refresh rate, sharp motion, and low input lag? Sure, its picture quality is pretty basic, but that's the trade-off for such a cheap monitor. Compared to other 1080p gaming monitors with a native 240Hz refresh rate, it's a pretty effective option. Of course, if you want more features or a higher refresh rate, you'll have to pay more. Something like the Dell Alienware AW2523HF is a good alternative if you want a 360Hz option, and it has some extra perks like HDR. Just that it has pretty limited picture quality in HDR, so it really doesn't add much. But if you do care about picture quality, there's another option that costs about the same as the G2524H and looks much better. And that's the Acer Nitro XV275U. It supports HDR and has mini LED backlighting that helps it display deeper blacks with brighter highlights. Plus colors look vivid. It's really a step above the Dell for picture quality, but keep in mind that it's pretty different in terms of specs, so it doesn't directly compete with the Dell. It's a 27-inch 1440p monitor with a lower 170Hz refresh rate, and motion looks a lot worse too. If you're on a tight budget and deciding which cheap monitor to get, this or the Dell, it really comes down to whether you want better motion or better picture quality. That's all for the Dell G2524H. If you want more details on the monitor, check out our written review. The link is in the description below. Until next time, I'm Nicholas from Rtings.com, where we help you find the best product for your needs. Ciao. Just so that
I love it when you make that noise.
like a 5-year-old.
It makes me giggle.
Just that it has again. It's a natural reflex. Okay.